The market was alive with voices, haggling in dozens of alien tongues, the air thick with the smell of strange spices and sizzling food. Daniel moved slowly through the crowd, careful not to bump into anyone. Every set of eyes that landed on him lingered a little too long. Humans were rare here, and curiosity followed him like a shadow. He kept his gaze low, scanning stalls for engine parts he needed for his ship. From a balcony above, Carell watched him. Tall, broad-shouldered, and moving like someone who didn't know the danger he was in. To her, the alien marketplace wasn't just a place to trade, it was a hunting ground. Female warriors sized up potential mates, and the humans stood out like a beacon. Others were already noticing him, their whispers sharp, their glances hungry. Carell's jaw tightened. Daniel stopped to inspect a display of metal tools, speaking softly with the merchant. He didn't see the group of alien women moving toward him, their eyes bright with interest. Carell did. Without hesitation, she dropped from the balcony, landing with a thud that made the crowd part. She walked straight to him. He looked up, startled by her height and the faint shimmer of her scaled skin under the light. Her eyes locked on his, golden and unblinking. Before he could step back, she closed the distance, one hand gripping his arm. Her other hand slid up to his neck, fingers brushing his skin. Then she leaned in and pressed the side of her face to his throat. Daniel stiffened. A strange, warm scent, sharp but not unpleasant, spread from where her skin touched his. She lingered for a moment, breathing deep, her grip firm as iron. When she pulled back, the crowd was silent. She turned her head and said loudly, in her deep, accented voice, "This male is mine." The reaction was instant. Whispers rippled through the marketplace. The other females stopped in their tracks, eyes narrowing. Some backed away. Others studied Carell with a mix of respect and challenge. Daniel looked around, bewildered, not understanding why everyone suddenly kept their distance. "What are you doing?" he asked, his voice low. "Protecting you," Carell replied, still holding his arm. She moved through the crowd, pulling him with her. The onlookers didn't block their way. No one dared. She led him down a side street, away from the market's noise. The walls here were close, the shadows deep. She released his arm, but stayed close, watching the path ahead. "That scent," she said, "tells every female that you are claimed. If they touch you now, they insult me, and insulting me means blood." Daniel blinked, processing her words. "Claimed? I don't belong to you." Her gaze snapped to his, sharp enough to cut. "If you walk here unmarked, they will circle you like prey. You are rare. They will fight over you. Some will take without asking. That my scent tells them they must go through me first." "That's not comforting," he muttered, but the serious look in her eyes told him she wasn't joking. A shadow moved at the far end of the alley. 3 alien females stepped into view, their bodies lean and coiled like predators. Their eyes went to Daniel, then to Carell. One of them smiled, a thin, mocking curve of her lips. "Bold of you to claim him, Carell," the tallest one said. "Does he know what that means?" "He knows enough," Carell answered, her voice cold. She stepped forward, placing herself between Daniel and the newcomers. The tallest female tilted her head, inhaling. "Your scent is fresh, but it will fade. Perhaps we'll meet again when it does." They turned and left, their laughter echoing down the alley. Daniel exhaled slowly, only then realizing how tense he'd been. "That," Carell said without looking at him, "is why you need the mark." Daniel followed her back toward the main road, his mind spinning. He didn't know this world's rules, but one thing was clear. He had just been pulled into something dangerous, and Carell wasn't the type to let go once she decided something was hers. Her pace slowed as they rejoined the market crowd. People still stared, but none came close. Daniel glanced at her, seeing the faint glint of satisfaction in her eyes. He wanted to ask why she'd chosen him, but something told him the answer wouldn't be simple. Instead, he stayed silent, his thoughts caught between confusion and the strange feeling still lingering where her skin had touched his neck. Carell noticed the way he kept rubbing at the spot. She didn't tell him that her scent would cling to him for days, that every female of her kind within miles would recognize it. She didn't tell him that claiming a male publicly was a challenge in itself, one that others would not ignore. For now, it was enough that the human walked beside her, safe for the moment, even if he didn't yet understand the storm she had just started. Daniel followed Carell through winding streets until the noise of the market faded behind them. The The buildings here were taller, casting long shadows over the stone path. She finally stopped near a small courtyard where a fountain trickled quietly. Turning to face him, she crossed her arms, her golden eyes scanning his face as if deciding how much to tell. "You still look confused," she said. "I am," he replied. "You marked me without asking, and now you say I'm yours? That's not how things work for humans." Her jaw flexed, but her tone stayed calm. "On my world, to claim a male means protection. Without it, you would already be in someone's home, or worse." Daniel frowned. "You mean kidnapped?" "Yes, and here, no one would stop them. You are a rarity. Many would fight to have you, but a claimed male is off limits, unless someone challenges the claim in combat." He shook his head slowly, trying to make sense of it. "So if someone beats you, they get me? That is the law," she said. "It is not a law I intend to lose." Before Daniel could reply, a shadow crossed the courtyard. Two alien males stepped into view, their scales darker and their movements cautious. They bowed slightly to Karel, but their eyes kept darting toward Daniel. "Word travels fast," one of them said. "Karel of the Broken Fang claims the human. There are already whispers of a challenge." Karel's eyes narrowed. "Who?" "The Crimson Blade," the male answered. Daniel noticed the flicker in her expression, recognition and something close to disdain. The males left without another word, melting back into the streets. Daniel took a step closer. "I take it this Crimson Blade isn't a friend." "She is a fighter," Karel said, her voice low. "Fast, proud, and eager to humiliate me. She will not care about you. You will be a trophy to her." He tried to force a laugh, but it came out dry. "Great. I came here for ship parts, and now I'm a prize in someone's tournament." Her gaze softened for a fraction of a second. "I did not mean for this to happen in the market, but the way they were looking at you, I knew they would follow. My scent stopped them. For now." Daniel rubbed the back of his neck where her scent still lingered. "So what happens if she challenges you?" "I fight. If I win, no one will question the claim for a long time. If I lose—" She didn't finish the sentence, but her silence said enough. The air shifted suddenly. A group of female warriors entered the courtyard from the opposite side. Their armor caught the fading sunlight, and their eyes fixed on Karel. At their center stood a tall figure with crimson markings running along her scaled arms. "Karel," the figure called, her voice sharp. "You mark a human as if he were one of our own. Bold. I wonder if you can keep him." Daniel stiffened, but Karel didn't move. "You want a challenge? Blade? Name your time and place." "Tomorrow. The arena," Crimson Blade replied. "Winner keeps the human. Loser walks away in shame." Without waiting for an answer, they turned and left, their armor clinking softly in the distance. Daniel let out a long breath. "Do I get a say in this?" Karel looked at him, her expression unreadable. "No, but you can choose to trust me. I have never lost to her before." "Before?" he repeated, the word catching his attention. Her lips curled in a faint, humorless smile. "We have fought twice. Both times I left her on the ground. She will fight harder now." They returned to the small inn where Karel was staying. Inside her room, she set down her weapon, a long, curved blade with a handle wrapped in dark leather. Daniel leaned against the wall, watching as she inspected it for damage. "You're really going to fight for me," he said, almost disbelieving. "I claimed you," she answered. "It is my duty to defend that claim, and my honor." He studied her, trying to read the woman behind the warrior. "What happens if you get hurt?" "Then you will have to decide if you are willing to fight for yourself," she said, without looking up. Silence settled between them, broken only by the sound of her sharpening the blade. Daniel realized she wasn't just doing this out of some strange alien custom. There was something personal in the way she spoke of Crimson Blade, as if the rivalry went beyond him. When she finally set the weapon aside, she looked at him again. "Stay close to me until the duel. If they catch you alone, they might try to take you before the fight. That would rob me of my victory." Daniel swallowed. "And you can't have that." "No," she said firmly, "I cannot." That night, Daniel lay awake in the small guest bed, listening to the muffled sounds of the city beyond the shutters. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had stepped into a world where every glance and every gesture carried a weight he didn't understand. And now, his fate rested on a woman who had decided, without asking, that he belonged to her. In the next room, Karel sat by the window, her blade across her knees. eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. The scent she had marked him with was strong tonight, drifting even through the walls. She knew it would only provoke his would-be challengers further, but that was fine. Tomorrow, in the arena, she would show them all why the human was hers, and why no one should dare to take him. Morning light spilled into the narrow streets, painting the stone in gold. The city was already alive with movement, but the energy felt different. Conversations hushed as Carell and Daniel passed. Eyes followed them, some curious, some hostile. The scent mark on his neck still clung strong, almost like a silent banner daring others to act. They reached the great arena before the sun was fully overhead. It rose like a massive ring of carved stone, its gates open to streams of people filing inside. Warriors in armor walked past, some nodding to Carell, others smirking at Daniel as if measuring him for a prize they would soon claim. Inside, the air smelled of sand and metal. The seats were already filling, the crowd buzzing with the promise of violence. Daniel stayed close behind Carell, feeling smaller and more out of place with every step. She led him to a side chamber carved into the stone walls. A guard in black armor stood at the entrance, giving Carell a respectful nod before letting them in. The chamber was simple: stone benches, a rack of weapons, and a single torch burning low. Carell walked to the rack, her fingers brushing over the blades before choosing her own. The curved weapon gleamed under the dim light. She began wrapping her hands in leather strips, her movements precise. Daniel watched her in silence until the weight of it pushed him to speak. "You don't have to do this. We could just leave." Her eyes lifted to his, steady and unyielding. "If I leave, she will follow. If I lose, you become hers. Either way, you are not free from this unless I win here." Before he could answer, the sound of footsteps echoed from the corridor. A tall figure stepped into the chamber, Crimson Blade herself. Her crimson-marked arms caught the light like molten fire. She smiled slowly, her sharp teeth flashing. "So it's true," she said, her gaze sliding over Daniel. "The human lives and breathes. Not much to look at, but rare enough to be worth keeping." Carell stepped forward, blocking her view. "Say what you came to say and leave." Crimson Blade chuckled. "You always were impatient. I came to tell your human goodbye. After today, he will not be yours to protect." Daniel felt Carell's body tense, her shoulders stiff as stone. "We'll see," she said. With a shrug, Crimson Blade turned and left, her laughter echoing down the hall. A horn sounded from above, long, low, and final. Carell finished tying her wraps, then glanced at Daniel. "Stay here until they call you. If I lose, they'll take you out a different gate. Do not fight them. It will only make it worse." He didn't like the way she said "if," but he nodded. "And if you win," her mouth curved in the faintest smile, "then you stay with me. No one will dare touch you." The guards arrived, leading her toward the central arena. Daniel followed until they stopped him at the gate, the bars cold under his hands as he watched her walk into the sunlight. The arena floor was wide, the sand pale under the glare. The crowd roared when Carell appeared, and roared louder when Crimson Blade stepped out from the opposite gate. They circled each other, weapons ready, the tension pulling the noise into a sharp edge of silence. Crimson Blade struck first, moving with a burst of speed that blurred her form. Carell met the blow with her blade, the clash ringing out across the arena. The fight began fast, each strike testing the other, each dodge just barely escaping injury. Daniel's chest tightened with every movement, the speed and force almost too much to follow. Carell ducked under a sweeping strike, countering with a sharp slash across Crimson Blade's side. The crowd roared, but the warrior barely flinched. She pressed forward, driving Carell back toward the wall. Daniel gripped the bars, his knuckles white. Every time Carell stumbled, his stomach turned. But she kept moving, her stance low and steady, her blade catching every strike. Then, with a sudden feint, she stepped inside Crimson Blade's guard and slammed her elbow into the warrior's chest. The impact sent her opponent stumbling, and Carell followed with a hard kick to the knee. Crimson Blade went down on one knee but rolled away before Carell could finish her. They circled again, both breathing hard now, their weapons slick with dust and sweat. The final exchange came in a blur. Crimson Blade lunged, Carell sidestepped, and her curved blade flashed once in the sun. The crowd erupted as Crimson Blade's weapon flew from her hand, clattering across the sand. Carell stood over her fallen opponent, blade poised at her throat. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by Carell's voice. "He is mine. Remember that." The crowd answered with a roar that shook the walls. Carell turned and walked toward the gate, her steps steady, the weight of victory heavy but certain. Daniel's breath caught when she stopped before him. Without a word, she reached through the bars, brushing her fingers against his neck where her scent still lingered. Her touch was brief, but the message was clear. Her claim was stronger now than ever. The gate opened, and he stepped into the arena corridor beside her. Warriors bowed as they passed, and no one dared to speak against her victory. They left the arena together, the noise of the crowd fading behind them. But Daniel knew this was only the beginning. Victory might keep challengers away for now, but the way people had looked at him, there would be others waiting for their chance. And Carell, for all her strength, had just made him the most watched human on the planet. They walked back through the city streets. Carell's steps steady despite the fight she had just won. The scent of sweat and battle still clung to her, mixing with the stronger scent she had placed on Daniel. People moved aside as they passed, their eyes dropping quickly, no one daring to challenge her claim now. Daniel stayed close, still feeling the rush of the fight in his chest. At the inn, Carell closed the door behind them and leaned her weapon against the wall. Her breathing was calm, but Daniel could see the bruises forming along her arms and ribs. She moved toward the wash basin, dipping a cloth in water and pressing it to her side. The sharp inhale she gave told him the wound hurt more than she would admit. "Let me," he said, stepping forward. She hesitated, then handed him the cloth. Daniel knelt beside her, gently pressing the damp fabric against the injured area. Her skin was warm, the scales slightly rough under his fingers. She didn't speak, just watched him with those golden eyes, her expression unreadable. "You took some heavy hits," he said quietly. "I've taken worse," she replied. "But Crimson Blade fights harder when she's humiliated. Next time it will be worse." Daniel's hands paused. "Next time?" "There will always be another," she said. "Today I won. Tomorrow another will want to test me. As long as you are mine, there will be challenges." He didn't know what to say to that. Part of him wanted to tell her to let him go, to end this strange claim and walk away. But the image of her standing in the arena, protecting him without hesitation, stayed in his mind. When he finished tending to her side, she stood and moved to the window. Outside, the streets glowed in the fading light. "There are those who will not challenge me openly," she said. "They will try to take you when I am not looking. That is the greater danger." He joined her at the window, watching the people below. "You're saying I need a guard?" Her gaze shifted to him. "I am your guard, but you will need to learn how to protect yourself. If they separate us, you must survive long enough for me to find you." Daniel frowned. "And how exactly do I do that? I'm not a warrior like you." "You have other strengths," she said. "Humans are unpredictable. That is why I chose to claim you. You see solutions others do not." The words caught him off guard. "I thought you claimed me because I was rare." Her eyes softened, though her voice stayed steady. "At first, but now." She let the sentence fade, turning back to the view. The evening passed in quiet conversation. She told him about her clan, the Broken Fang, and how they had been scattered after losing a war. Many of her rivals now saw her as a target because she had no allies left. Claiming a human was a way to rebuild status, but it also painted a mark on her back. Daniel listened, realizing that her claim on him was not just about tradition, it was about survival. If she lost him, she lost face. If she kept him, she grew more feared. A sudden knock at the door broke the moment. Carell moved quickly, signaling him to stay back. She opened the door to find a young alien messenger, scales pale and eyes darting nervously. "A gift for the victor," the messenger said, holding out a sealed box. Carell took it but did not open it until the messenger was gone. She set it on the table, examining the seal. Her frown deepened. "This is from the Silver Claw clan. They do not give gifts without poison." Daniel stepped closer. "Poison? You mean literally?" "Perhaps, or a trap. Stay back." She broke the seal and lifted the lid slowly. Inside was a silver necklace shaped like interlocked talons. It shimmered under the lantern light. "What's wrong with it?" he asked. "It is a mating token," she said flatly. "By their law, if you wear it, you belong to the one who gave it." Daniel's eyes widened. So they're trying to steal me without a fight? Yes, she said, closing the box. It is a message. They are telling me they can take you in ways that do not require the arena. She placed the box on the highest shelf away from him. Do not touch it. Do not even let them see you look at it. The tension in the room grew heavier. Daniel realized this victory had only made him more valuable. The stronger Carell's claim, the more others would want to break it. That night, as the city quieted, Carell sat by the window again, her blade resting across her lap. Daniel lay awake in the next room, thinking about the life he'd stumbled into. He had come to this world for ship parts. Now he was marked, guarded, and fought over like some rare treasure. He turned his head toward the faint scent still clinging to his neck. It was strange, unsettling, yet oddly comforting. It meant danger, but it also meant Carell was watching. Somewhere in the streets below, he thought he heard movement, a shadow slipping through the alley. He wasn't sure if it was his imagination, but he knew one thing. Carell was right. The fight in the arena had ended, but the real war over him had only begun. The night was still when Daniel woke to the faint creak of wood. He held his breath, listening. It came again, soft footsteps, too light to be Carell's heavy, confident stride. He sat up slowly, scanning the dim room. The door to the hall was closed, but the shutters near the window were moving, letting in a thin blade of moonlight. He slipped out of bed, careful not to make noise. The shadow outside the window shifted. A moment later, the shutters swung wider, free, and a figure began to climb through. Daniel's heart jumped. The intruder moved quickly, a lean female with silver markings across her scaled arms. Her eyes locked on him, sharp and hungry. Before he could react, a second figure appeared at the window, handing the first a coil of dark rope. Daniel backed away, looking toward Carell's door, but the movement was too quick. One of them lunged, knocking him to the floor. The sound of splintering wood cut through the struggle. Carell burst into the room, her blade flashing in the moonlight. She didn't shout, didn't hesitate. Her weapon sliced through the rope before it could be tied, sending the pieces falling to the floor. The intruders hissed and drew short, curved knives, circling her. Daniel scrambled to the corner, his chest tight as he watched the fight unfold in the narrow space. Carell's movements were precise, each step forcing them back. The first blow came fast. One attacker aimed for her ribs, but Carell twisted, slamming her elbow into the female's jaw. The second attacker rushed from behind, but Carell's tail swept their legs out from under them. It was over in moments. One intruder fled through the window, limping, while the other lay unconscious on the floor. Carell didn't chase them. She turned to Daniel, her eyes scanning him quickly. "Are you hurt?" He shook his head, though his hands were still trembling. "They were trying to take me." "I know," she said, her voice low but steady. "They weren't from the Silver Claw. These were hired blades. Someone is paying others to break my claim." She pulled the unconscious attacker toward the door, calling for the inn's guard. Two armored males arrived quickly, dragging the intruder away. When the room was quiet again, Carell closed the shutters tight and leaned her blade against the wall. "You can't sleep here anymore," she said. "They'll keep coming. We move at dawn." Daniel didn't argue. The look in her eyes told him the situation was worse than she had admitted. When morning came, they left the inn without speaking to anyone. Carell led him through the winding alleys, avoiding the main streets. The city felt different in daylight, but Daniel couldn't shake the memory of the shadow at his window. They stopped at a weapons stall near the outer wall. Carell handed him a small, lightweight blade with a handle wrapped in dark leather. "You'll carry this from now on," she said. "Don't try to fight like me. Use it only when you have no other choice." Daniel tested the grip, feeling the weight. "I've never fought with one of these." "Then learn fast," she said. "If they catch you without me, hesitation will kill you." They continued to the far edge of the city, where the buildings thinned and the streets opened into wide, dusty paths. Carell brought him to a stone-walled house set apart from the others. The door was reinforced with metal bands, and narrow windows allowed a view in all directions. "This is safer," she said, unlocking the heavy door. "The guards here are loyal to me." Inside, the rooms were simple but strong. Daniel noticed the training space in the back, the racks of weapons, and the stacks of crates against one wall. Carell moved to one of the crates, pulling out a leather vest and handing it to him. "Wear this. It won't stop a blade completely, but it will give you time. He slipped it on, feeling the snug weight across his shoulders. You're preparing me like I'm going into a war. You are, she said without looking at him. It just doesn't look like one. They spent the rest of the day in the training yard. Carell showed him how to block and step back, how to keep his eyes on an attacker's hands, and how to use the blade in quick, short strikes. His arms ached and his palms burned from gripping the weapon, but she didn't let him stop. By the time the sun began to set, Daniel was exhausted. Carell finally lowered her weapon. Better, she said. Not good enough yet, but better. They ate a quiet meal inside, the air between them heavier than before. Daniel could feel her watching him as he ate, as if she were memorizing every detail of his movements. When darkness fell, she checked the locks twice before sitting near the window with her weapon ready. Daniel sat across from her, the leather vest still on. You think they'll try again tonight? He said. I know they will, she replied. Her voice was calm, but her posture was tense, every muscle ready. Daniel realized then that the mark she had put on him wasn't just about warning off rivals. It was a promise she intended to keep at any cost. And as long as he carried her scent, that promise would be tested again and again. The night was silent except for the faint hum of the wind against the stone walls. Daniel sat near the small fire in the corner, his new blade resting on the floor beside him. Carell hadn't moved from her spot by the window, her eyes fixed on the shadows outside. Every so often, her tail flicked, a sign she was listening for something beyond what he could hear. Hours passed before a sound broke the stillness, a low scrape like metal against stone. Carell's head turned instantly. She motioned for Daniel to stay put and moved toward the door without a sound. The scraping grew louder, joined by a faint creak from the roof. Daniel's heart began to pound. He gripped the hilt of his blade, his palms slick with sweat. Carell raised a hand, signaling for silence. Then, with a sudden motion, she flung the door open. Two figures stood there, cloaked in dark cloth, one holding a hooked tool still wedged in the doorframe. They froze for a heartbeat before lunging forward. Carell met them halfway, her blade flashing in the dim firelight. The fight was quick but brutal. The first intruder fell to her strike, weapon clattering to the floor. The second tried to slip past her toward Daniel, but she spun, cutting across their arm and forcing them back. Daniel scrambled to his feet, stepping in front of the fire as if it were a shield. The injured intruder hissed, then turned and bolted into the night. Carell didn't follow. She slammed the door shut, bolting it, and pushed the other body aside. This is escalating, she said, her voice low. They're not testing me anymore. They're trying to end this quickly. Daniel set his blade down, his hands still shaking. What do you mean, end this? If they kill me, my claim dies with me, she said. Then you're theirs. No fight, no rules, no protection. The weight of her words settled on him like stone. He realized how fragile the balance was. Her scent mark could scare others only as long as she lived to defend it. The rest of the night passed without another attempt, but neither of them slept. At dawn, Carell led him to the training yard again, her expression sharper than before. Enough basic moves, she said. Today you learn to fight to win. She pushed him harder than ever, forcing him to block faster, to strike without hesitation. When he faltered, she struck his blade with hers, the shock running through his arms. You're still holding back, she said. You think too much about the strike. Stop thinking. Move. By midday, his muscles screamed and sweat ran down his back. But he was faster, his reactions sharper. Carell nodded slightly, though she didn't relax. As they took a break, she handed him a flask of water. You can't depend on me to always be there, she said. One day, you might have to defend yourself before I reach you. If you hesitate, you're gone. Daniel drank, his throat dry. And if I lose, her gaze met his, then you're not coming back. They trained until the sun dipped low. That evening, Carell left briefly, returning with fresh supplies, extra food, water, and a second blade she strapped to his belt. If they take one, you still have the other, she explained. The quiet of the night returned, but the tension in the air was different. Daniel kept his vest on, his blades within reach. Carell sat by the window again, but this time she wasn't just watching, she was waiting. It was past midnight when it happened, a sudden crash against the back wall, followed by the sound of breaking wood. Carell moved instantly, shouting, "Stay here!" before vanishing into the hallway. Daniel heard the clash of steel and the grunt of effort. Then the door to his room burst open, not by Carell, but by a masked attacker rushing inside. Instinct took over. Daniel drew his blade, stepping sideways as the attacker lunged. The movement saved him. The knife missed his ribs by inches. He slashed without thinking, the blade cutting across the attacker's forearm. They staggered back, hissing in pain, but came at him again. Daniel ducked under the strike and shoved forward with all his weight, knocking them against the wall. Footsteps thundered down the hall. Carell's. She burst in, striking the intruder's head with the flat of her blade. They crumpled to the floor. She looked at Daniel, breathing hard, her gaze sweeping over him for injuries. "You fought back." "I remembered what you said," he managed. A flicker of pride touched her face before she hid it. "Good. But next time, don't push. Cut deep. Make sure they can't get up." She dragged the intruder out into the hallway, calling for the guards. When she returned, she locked the door and sat across from him. "They won't stop," she said. "The more I defend you, the more they want to break me. Soon, it won't be just hired blades. It will be someone with a name, someone who thinks they can take everything from me." Daniel swallowed. "Then what do we do?" Her golden eyes met his, fierce and unyielding. "We make sure they learn the truth. You're not just mine because I marked you. You're mine because anyone who tries to take you will not survive." The way she said it sent a chill through him, but there was no doubt in his mind she meant every word. The morning air was cold, a thin mist curling through the narrow streets. Carell stood in the training yard, her blade resting against her shoulder, eyes fixed on the distant rooftops. Daniel joined her, fastening the leather vest she had given him. He could feel her tension before she spoke. "They've stopped sending small groups," she said. "It means one thing. The one behind this is ready to step forward." Daniel adjusted the strap of his vest. "And that means?" "It means the real fight is coming. No more shadows, no more hired blades. The leader will try to take you themselves." Before he could answer, a horn echoed from the city gates, long and sharp. Carell's head turned toward the sound. "It's her," she said. "The one who thinks she can claim you." An hour later, they were standing in the great arena again. The stands were packed, the air electric. At the far gate, the challenger entered, a towering female in black and gold armor, her scales gleaming under the light. The crowd called her name in unison, Zira of the Iron Fang. Her reputation was legendary, and even Carell's jaw tightened at the sight. Zira's gaze slid over Carell and landed on Daniel. She smiled slowly, like a predator. "A human," she said loudly enough for the crowd to hear. "You guard him well, Carell, but today I take him home." Carell stepped forward, her voice cutting through the noise. "You can try." The fight began with no signal. Zira charged like a storm, her strikes heavy and fast. Carell met them head-on, steel clashing in a shower of sparks. The sound of each blow rang through the arena, the force shaking the sand beneath their feet. Daniel gripped the railing from where he stood behind the gate, every muscle in his body tight. Zira fought differently from the others. She didn't test, she attacked to end it. Twice, she knocked Carell off balance, the edge of her blade slicing close. But Carell adapted quickly, turning her speed into sharp counters, forcing Zira to adjust. The fight dragged on, the crowd roaring with every exchange. Then Zira slammed her shoulder into Carell, sending her sprawling into the sand. Gasps erupted from the stands. Daniel's heart jumped, but Carell rolled away from the follow-up strike, coming to her feet with a fierce snarl. She changed tactics, ducking low, striking fast, never letting Zira settle into her rhythm. A cut opened along Zira's side, dark blood soaking into the sand. The Iron Fang warrior hissed, enraged, and swung with full force. Carell caught the blow on her blade, the impact jarring her arm, but she pushed back with every ounce of strength she had left. Finally, with a sudden twist, Carell hooked Zira's weapon, yanked it free, and sent it spinning across the arena floor. The crowd exploded in cheers. Carell stepped in, pressing the tip of her blade to Zira's throat. "Leave." Carell said, her voice like stone. Zira's eyes narrowed, but she stepped back, raising her hands in surrender. The fight was over, the gates opened, and Daniel ran to her side. "You're bleeding," he said, seeing the fresh cuts along her arm. "It's nothing," she replied, breathing hard but still standing tall. "It's done. No one will challenge me now." They left the arena together, the crowd still chanting her name. Back at the stone house, Karel set her weapon aside and leaned against the wall, her exhaustion showing for the first time. You fought like your life depended on it, Daniel said quietly. It did, she replied, because if I lost, yours would have ended as well. He stepped closer, meeting her gaze. You've been fighting for me since the day we met. I never asked for it, but I'm glad you did. For a moment, she said nothing, then reached out, her fingers brushing the side of his neck where her scent still clung. You carry my mark, she said softly, but it's more than that now. You are mine because you choose to be. Daniel didn't pull away. I do choose. Her eyes searched his for a long moment before she nodded, a rare smile touching her lips. Then let them try again. They'll find out the same thing Zyra did. Some battles can't be won. The rest of the day passed in quiet peace, but the mark on his neck meant something different now. It was no longer just a warning to other females. It was a declaration, one both of them understood, and neither of them intended to let go. When night fell, they sat by the fire together, the city outside calm for the first time in days. Karel kept her blade close, as always, but her shoulders were relaxed. Daniel knew there would always be danger, but he also knew one thing with certainty. No matter who came for him, Karel would stand in the way, and now he would stand with her.